it means, so let's pretend I'm a dedicated Tory and voted Tory all my life. But Mildred is a Whig who will go to some school Tory. So God doesn't tell you who you should vote for. But it'd be good to use biblical principles. One such principle, knowing what God wanted for a king, is that even if I'm a dedicated, lifelong Tory person, if Mildred, who's running for dog catcher here in town, is a Whig, but deep down I know my girl, Tory, my girl in my party, would not rule or make decisions as if God himself is ruling. That Kennedy from the other party is more, again, and that's okay if they don't profess to be Christian, right? So maybe if I know that the person in the other party is more an example of, I think that's the way God would rule. Even though I'm a lifelong Tory, for this election, I might have to vote Whig. Right? But so again, so the biblical concept that one might want to consider, besides other biblical principles, is that, hey, when I go close that curtain, nobody's business what I vote for, but I should take a tip from God and think, well, which of the candidates I'm voting for dog catcher best would rule as if Yahweh himself was ruling on the throne. And so the king was a spiritual leader. That's why whenever you're reading the Old Testament, whenever you got a king doing something wicked, just know God gets even more infurious because a wicked king sets the tone spiritually for the nation, not the prophet. The prophet was really there to assist the king in ruling spiritually. The next office is prophet, king, prophet. Prophet is called by God. Remember, prophet is sent from God to the people. Prophet is sent from God to the people. Round a prophet off to the nearest lawyer, then there is miracle worker. And so a lot of times we think of a prophet as, a prophet, the one who could, in the future, Israel, this is what's going to happen. So we sometimes, not all, but some of us might be worried that we think of prophet as these miracle workers, raising people from the dead, turning water into, making bread last forever. But a prophet was sent by God, picture more a lawyer. A prophet was sent from God to bring a law case against Israel, suing them in essence of, look, you got to get back to the law. God gave Israel the law. You're supposed to be living by it. God would send prophets all throughout Israel's history. It's basically a lawsuit to the nation collectively, but you individually. So a prophet sent from God to the people. The main job of a prophet was to sue Israel, saying, look, you need to get back. You're breaking the law. You need to get back in relationship with God. The third office that we're looking at is a priest. So a prophet sent from God to the people. Think Elijah. A priest is called by God from among the people. So a priest is one of us who represents the people to God. A priest represents the people to God. The key thing is why God established it as a priest is one of us. They know what we go through. They're going before God. All three offices pointed to Jesus who would eventually come. Jesus, as you know, I've ordered in this order, prophet, priest, and king. Jesus, ultimate prophet, ultimate priest, and ultimate king. Here's our verse we're looking at, where we're getting this from in Jesus. Hebrews 4, 14 through 16. Hebrews chapter 4, verses 14 through 16. A major theme of the book of Hebrews is Christ as our great high priest. The author of Hebrews writing says, therefore, since we have a great high priest who has ascended into heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. For we do not have a high priest in Jesus who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses. Jesus is not one who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses. If life right now is a poop sandwich or whatever it is that you're going through this way, and it's just things right, you don't know about this, no one knows. Whatever weaknesses, challenges, struggles, poop sandwiches that you're eating right now, Christ is able to empathize with you. He's our great high priest. But he says we have one who has been tempted in every way. And that word tempted is both. The word there refers to tempted like in, I'm down on my luck financially. I can't make the bills. I'm the treasurer of my kids' soccer team. Boy, people just giving me money all the time in cash. There's no checks and balances. I just take a little, right? So that kind of temptation to sin, but also temptation. The word carries that you're being tested. Right? Just, layoffs are happening at the factory. You're one of the people getting laid off right when your kid is headed to college in the fall. So Jesus in every way, and I believe supernaturally, unlike any other human, Jesus has been tempted in every way. He's tested and tempted to sin, yet he did not sin. Verse 16, Hebrews 4:16. Because of this, the author says, because Jesus is not one who's unable to empathize with our weaknesses. No, quite the contrary. Jesus has been uniquely tested and tempted in every way. Because of that, let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence. You can go to God knowing that, hey, Jesus is sharing with God what my need is, and God's going to answer. Jesus has been there. He knows what it's like. So that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. The big idea, the whole sermon in a sentence, both for last week and this, is you and I must understand and believe. You and I must understand and believe that Jesus, our great high priest, is one of us standing before God on our behalf. So last week we looked at 2 ways Jesus is able to be our great high priest among many. In total, we're just going to look at 4. But last week we started with just 2 ways Jesus is able to be our great high priest. One of us standing before God on behalf of us. The way we looked at last week, in case you weren't with us, or if you're like me, you might make sermons. I couldn't tell you what I preached last week. Noah, just yesterday, he's like, hey, what's your sermon on tomorrow? And then I gave a quick little sneak peek. He said, well, what did you talk about last week? I don't know. Noah always says, like, what do you mean? I don't know. I can't remember. So in case you're like me and don't remember, the first way Christ is a great high priest, like one of us, serving on our behalf, we looked at last week, was Jesus was poor. He was poor and homeless, but he was poor and understands our money problems. Jesus was poor. He understands our money problems. It's money problems, but just think overall, the vulnerabilities we sometimes find yourself, right? I don't know about you. I'm dependent on a job, right? Thank you for your graciousness. If Sue held back a check for just a couple of weeks, I'm in trouble. If the loan fund, they would say 70% of Americans with paycheck to paycheck, but that's nothing to be proud of, that's for sure. But I'm definitely of that 70% that lives paycheck for paycheck. So it's Jesus was poor and homeless. He understands, and you guys know I have kids in travel baseball. I just blown away at the expense. It just seems like every month is new. So I've never been this financially just stressed and vulnerable. Jesus was poor and homeless and understands my geez, I didn't realize the HOA fee is now due, and then another tournament fee is coming up. How is this all going to work? Jesus was poor and homeless. He understands our money problem. Jesus, I can just take a bite of his apple, like, no, slow down. Foxes have holes. Foxes have dens. Birds have nests. But the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Jesus was homeless. Are you sure you want to follow me? Jesus was homeless. Ultimate description of being physically vulnerable, financially vulnerable. Jesus was homeless. We looked at how Jesus didn't have enough money to pay his taxes. Jesus performed a miracle to pay for his and Peter's taxes. Jesus, being physically vulnerable, did not have the financial means to take care of his own mother, and therefore entrusted her care to John. The point there is, if you, like me, going through some financial hard time, you're part of that sandwich generation, where you're going, geez, man, another medical bill for my dad that the insurance didn't cover. You're worried about aging parents. You got nappy-headed little kids that are now starting to get closer to college. Jesus knows what that's like. Jesus knows what it's like. He's a great high priest who understands what you're going through in terms of your physical vulnerability. Not because he's this omniscient God. I see you down there. It's not God looks down and I see you down there, Mildred. He's been there. Secondly, last week we saw Jesus lost loved ones. He understands our grief. Jesus lost loved ones. He understands his grief. If you're listening to me, you lost a parent. I still just out of the blue. I know it's just a little over a year. My mom passed away. Fell asleep January 3rd. So, last year, I just out of the blue a couple nights ago, I woke up to the restroom and then I went back to sleep in my mind's eye. Just out of nowhere. I was thinking about my mom. Vividly can remember her last minutes. I was honored to be with her when she fell asleep. But just seeing her just minutes before she passed away, but where did that come from? Where did that just vividness reminder, even if it's over a year? Jesus lost his dad at a young age, somewhere between the age of 12 and young adult 33 or 36. Jesus lost his dad. Right? So he knows what it's like. He's lost a father. He lost a loved one. Jesus lost his cousin and best friend in John the Baptist. We looked at that. But Jesus knows what it's like to lose a loved one. Famous, shortest verse in all the Bible, Jesus wept. The word wept means to cry like uncontrollably. So Jesus knew he was about to raise Lazarus from the dead, but yet Jesus knows the pain of losing a loved one, losing our spouses or significant others. Jesus knows that way. Famous, shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus wept means to cry uncontrollably. So Jesus was poor. He understands our money problems. Jesus lost loved ones. He understands our grief. Today we look at two more ways quickly that Jesus is able to be our great high priest, one of us standing before God on our behalf. So number three, the third way we're looking at is Jesus was betrayed. He understands our betrayals. As we're here in the middle of Passion Week, Jesus was betrayed. He understands our betrayals. And then fourthly, lastly, we'll see Jesus didn't want to die. He understands our non-readiness to die. Jesus didn't want to die. He understands our non-readiness to die. So here's our third way that Jesus is our great high priest. Jesus was betrayed. He understands our betrayals. Jesus was betrayed. He understands our betrayals. My first really big taste of betrayal just unfortunately happened to come on a big old plate full. My personally first ever massive dose of betrayal happened in what feels like 2 or 3 lifetimes ago, many years ago. When I was much younger, I was married. My then wife at the time loved, worshiped the ground she walked on, did not want a separation or a divorce. We were separated at the point, kind of fast forward, it's a little less than a year. So it wasn't even a year. I still was wanting it to work, still begging and praying God and others to hope that she would come back. I got word that she was engaged. In the beginning of this huge bowl of feeling betrayal. You wouldn't know this, but my wife took 4 years of dating me to know that I was the one, right? 4 years of dating me. She was someone that would take her like 30 minutes to pick out what clothes or shoes to wear. 30 minutes to go to restaurants. It felt like 30 minutes to pick out what to eat. She's just someone that took forever to make decisions, which, of course, at the time we loved someone was cute and adorable. But I remember when I got word that she was engaged, the first big spoonful of betrayal was, it's not even a year. We haven't been separated a year. How can someone who needed 4 years of dating me, 30 minutes to get dressed, 30 minutes to pick out what to eat on the menu at the same restaurant to go to, how can she be engaged this soon? Massive. And I remember literally, and I've heard people say this before, I finally think of the message, I'd forgotten about how I remember when I read the news, I was literally feeling nauseous. I just wanted to toss my cookies. And also, then it was just, feeling like, geez, there's no way she's coming back now. I just remember feeling this sense of betrayal. Like, how can we engage? And it's not even 12 months since we've been separated. It might be closer to 9. So, kind of blow number 1 of the betrayal was that. Number 2, so her and I went to a small little Bible college. She was engaged to a relative of the chairman of our Bible department. This man knew that I wanted the marriage to work and I was doing everything, and it was just basically she was just done and didn't want to be married. So the chairman of the Bible department, it was a relative / close friend of his, and the grandson of the woman who was in charge, was dean of women. So my little small Bible college, the dean of women was responsible for the spiritual formation of the women. So here the Bible's clear to say, I hate divorce, and of course I think there's 2 causes or reasons, 2 biblical grounds for divorce. No reason, that's another sermon. 2 biblical grounds for divorce, but underneath those are subsets. 2 biblical grounds for divorce. There's no reason to get a divorce, though there's 2 biblical grounds. So anyway, these are head of the Bible department, in charge of spiritual formation of women. They're all in cahoots, helping my wife get with this relative and friend of yours. Just horrific sense of betrayal. And then the other big dose of betrayal in that same thing was a family that had pretty much adopted me. I was living on the East Coast, I'm originally from Indiana, but I did internships and was in seminary out in the Philadelphia area. This family that pretty much kind of adopted me, they were the host family when I was doing my internships. They kind of helped her. So again, I kept me out. That's like, she just left. I had no clue where she was. Years later, I found out, they told me that the family who was supposed to be my adopted family were the ones that were giving her comfort and shelter. I would say comfort and shelter. But I just remember thinking, I'm all for giving her one-time gift, but how did you help facilitate this? But so in that one incident, my wife knew leaving me in the first place, a sense of betrayal. for no grounds or no reason. In less than a year, being engaged with someone else. 2 people from the Bible college who knew me well. How were they handled? How was supposed to be my supposed adopted family? How were they handled? Massive feeling of betrayal. Jesus was betrayed. He understands everything I was going through. You may be someone here today that's been betrayed by a family member, a spouse, a loved one. Jesus was betrayed. He understands your betrayals. Jesus' trust in Judas to not embezzle from him and to not financially harm him, being Jesus, was betrayed. Jesus put his trust in Judas to not financially, we're not even at the big betrayal yet. Jesus trusted Judas to not take his hard-earned money. So Jesus' job, what did Jesus get paid to do? He was basically an itinerant preacher. So as a rabbi traveling over everywhere, we had a sponsor or two. So there were people that gave him money like monthly or weekly or whenever he would go. He would kind of give like a love offering. So here's Jesus, taking the time to come up with his various sermons, traveling by foot all over what is modern-day Israel. Jesus trusted Judas to not be embezzling from him. But here, Jesus felt betrayed, or Jesus felt to it. Jesus was betrayed in a financial way by Judas. Here's our first passage, John 12, 4 through 6. John chapter 12, verses 4 through 6. But one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was later to betray him, objected. Mary Magdalene brings this thing of perfume, pours it on Jesus' head. So Judas Iscariot objected to this action that Mary did by putting oil on Jesus' head. Judas said, why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was easily worth a year's wages. John, through the Holy Spirit, tells John he did not say this because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. As keeper of the money bag, Judas used to help himself to what was put into it. Imagine the betrayal, right? Judas was the treasurer of the disciples. And imagine the sense of betrayal that here he is embezzling money that was put into it, right? So here's Jesus speaking to the point where his voice was hoarse. Book of Mark really captures Jesus in a hard-earned money, and there's Judas putting it in his cycling off into his checking account, in his Charles Schwab account. Jesus was betrayed financially. Were you ever betrayed by someone that cost you financially? I don't know anyone's business, just didn't know if the Holy Spirit would speak to you. Have you ever been betrayed when it comes to money, right? You and that partner, or you and that family member, or you and that friend, the plan all along, you guys know it, no, you got a legal document. The plan was to split the proceeds in half. Once the thing sold, it's sold. And after you kind of get the math, you're like, wait, I didn't get that. You said, no, I had to pay for this and that, and that was an extra cost. No, you later find out that no, you flat out betrayed the kingdom money. Deal with this, split it in half, and you didn't. That boss promised you, if you just sit tight, at the end of the year, come evaluation time, I'm going to give you that raise. I'm going to make things right with you, Pete. The end of the year comes, evaluation comes. The profit and loss wasn't quite what we thought. You may find out, ma'am, lady, somehow you find out over lunch break or drinks after work that you and your fellow female colleagues are making way less than your male counterparts. Have you ever been betrayed by someone when it comes to finances or where you've been financially hurt? Jesus understands because he's been financially written off. Jesus understands that as a high priest who can understand what you want, not as this omniscient God that sees that your business partner ripped you off. No, it's because he's been there. Jesus being portrayed in a more grander scale, so kind of moving beyond just financially. Jesus being betrayed on the night before his death by Judas is so significant that it's recorded in all four Gospels. Right? So you always know your ears going to work, but whenever you see or hear a passage, it's recorded in all four Gospels. There's something very significant. You take those. I can take it quickly. Matthew 26, 14 through 27 talks about Judas betraying Jesus the night before his death. Mark 14, 43 through 50. Mark 14, 43 through 50. Luke 22, Luke 22, 47 to 53, and then John 18, 3 to 12. All four Gospels talk about the fact that Judas betrayed Jesus the night he was dead. Here's Matthew 26, verse 14. 14 through 26. I think that's 14 through 16, I think it should be. Here we go, Matthew 26, 14, so you can follow. Matthew 26, verse 14. Then one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and asked, hey, what are you willing to give me if I deliver him, Jesus, over to you? So they counted out for him 30 pieces of silver. From then on, Judas watched for an opportunity to hand Jesus over. Now, jumping down Matthew 26, verses 48 through 50. Matthew 26, 48 through 50. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. All the ways to be betrayed. Judas had said, the one I kiss is the man. Arrest him. Going at once to Jesus. Judas said, greetings, Rabbi, and kissed him. So a sign of an affection of love. To kiss Jesus was the signal for his betrayal. Jesus replied, do what you came for, friend. In general, right? So maybe you're thinking, oh, I've been ripped off in a financial deal, I've never been betrayed by someone that cost me money. Is there, in a more general way, have you been betrayed, stabbed in the back? If you have, Jesus is a great high priest, bringing your prayers to the Father, who knows what it's like to be betrayed. And you like me, you love that man to death, you've done anything for him, and here he, just wanted to trade you in for a younger model. He felt so betrayed. All those years of helping him in his early careers, now he's off with some young Kingbocker. I'm afraid that for that while. Now he's off with some young Kingbocker. It's that feeling of betrayal. Jesus knows what it's like. He's been betrayed, the ultimate betrayal by Judas that led to his torture and death. Secondly, Judas got what was coming to him for betraying Christ. You and I need to know, for those of us who've been betrayed, those who betray you will get what's coming to them. You're coming in, Judas committed suicide, hung himself. Judas got what was coming to him. That person that betrayed you is going to get what's coming to him or her. Right? So you must understand and believe that Jesus, our great high priest, is one of us, standing before God on our behalf. Jesus was betrayed. He understands our betrayal. Lastly, we'll just close with this last point way of many. Jesus, our high priest, we just looked at 4. Jesus didn't want to die. He understands our non-readiness to die. Most people don't want to die. Most people are not like, it's a great way to die, right? Most people don't want to die. As someone has said, everyone wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die to get there. Speaking of that, a middle-aged woman over in Berne, had a heart attack and was taken to the hospital. While on the operating table, she had a near-death experience. Seeing God, she asked, Lord, is my time up? God answered, no, you have another 40 years, 6 months, and 8 days to live. The woman decided to stay in the hospital to have a facelift, liposuction, and a tummy tuck. She even had someone come in and change her hair color. She's got a facelift, liposuction, tummy tuck, hair color change. Since she has so much more time to live, he thought she might as well make the most of it. After her last operation, she was released from the hospital. Right immediately, arriving in front of God, he demanded, hey, I thought you said I had another 40 years to live. Why didn't you pull me on the path of that car? God replied, I didn't recognize you. And by the way, this picture here is true. So where I saw this picture, that lady on the right is the lady on the left. And I thought, whoever this surgeon is, he's out of St. Louis. It wasn't like Miami or Los Angeles. So this doctor posts, before and after his work, when this went on the internet, it went viral for like, oh, it's fake, it's AI generated, no one could do that. And so the doctor was like, no, here we go, here's a picture before and after. But that's a true before and after picture of this lady. So Jesus didn't want to die. He understands our non-readiness to die. Now, just to be honest and sharing, and I kind of love our church, and those that are new to our church are going up. My number one favorite thing I love about our church is how no one wears makeup. So I'm so used to churches where people are fake, and I always say, not to embarrass the person, I won't say their name, but my final straw is I kind of knew, like, God's calling me here to sit back on this first candidate. The final straw was I loved how someone from this church, I was talking with them, and they were just cussing away. And that's what I knew. It's funny and serious. And so you know what it was. I thought to myself, that's what I want, right? So these people that, oh, wow, guys, I bet you this, and they started to park. I didn't wasn't bombs or nothing. But I just was thinking, I like how this person is just themselves, right? So they cuss a little bit. They're not hiding in front of me. Jesus wants you to be transparent and vulnerable. God loves that. The way to grow is transparency and vulnerable. And trust me, boy, that's my number one favorite thing about this church. So many people, oh, yeah, I'm the pastor. Here's my life. And no, everybody that fight like cats and dogs, and you're planning a divorce with the secretary. Oh, I just love my life. And I got I got her flowers the other day. I love the transparency, right? So here's me kind of taking the mask off. In all honesty, so I have anxiety issues or challenges about dying early. So of course, right? So I can still think of those sweet little godly ladies in my grandma's church. But darn, I can't wait to see the Lord. I just can't. You should be excited to die, right? If the doctors told you didn't have much time, that's good news. You're going to be worshiping with Jesus for all eternity. Okay, maybe I'm not God. I'm not in her to die. And I'm not right? So I'm just taking the mask off, the mask off. I think when I just my alone time with God, Jesus, why do you get so anxious going to physical? And why is it if a cough just sounds funny? It's lung cancer. I never smoked a day in my life, but it's lung cancer. I know it is, right? Why are you so fearful of dying? I think when I break it down, it's not ready. It's not fear of dying, right? I know Christ. I know what's going to happen to me when I die. It's more I'm not ready to die. I wonder if that's where a lot of us are at. I'm not ready to die. I still think in my head. I tell people, I think if I, at minimum, right, just like, Lord, if I could just live to see my kids married off, at minimum, right? I think if you just get married off, at minimum, see their kids at best, then I'd be ready to die. And as I make slides, I think I sometimes tell God, like, Lord, if I just knew that I could live to see my kids married off, Lord willing, and maybe see them have kids. After that, I would have no anxiety about that. I'd be just tiptoeing into my physicals. I would bungee jump. You'd probably see me someday if I could just live to see my kids married off and have kids. I'd be, bungee jumping with a company who I just found in the phone book, doesn't even have a website. I said, hey, how old is that bungee rope? I have no idea. Sure, hook me up. I'd be finally get in a helicopter. Terrified of getting in a helicopter. And so I've been praying for that family that died in that helicopter crash. So I feel like, why are you anxious over physicals? Why are you not scared? Why are you not ready to die? Don't you know the Lord? Of course I know the Lord. I'm just not ready to see the Lord. A lot of times, even in my prayer, I'm sure God cracks up. I'm like, Lord, thank you so much. Can't wait to meet you face to face. I don't want to do that again soon. Can you just make sure Noah, my youngest son, is married up? But it'll be so amazing to see you, who are all eternal. Sent your son to die for me. I just can't wait to meet you face to face. But please make it to be where I'm like 93, 89 and a half at the minimum. If that resonates with me, right? I think that's a rare person who's like, oh, I just can't wait to be with the Lord. Or if so, maybe they've lived a good long life. But if you're like me, where you're like, hey, I'm a little nervous about this flight, I'm a little nervous about this trip or whatever. I don't like the way my stomach's been feeling lately. I hope it's not stomach cancer or runs in my family. Just know, Jesus, you're a great high priest, understands what it's like to not be ready to die. So just know that you're not less godly for the fact that you're not trying to see the Lord anytime soon. Here's Matthew 26, 36 to 45, Matthew 26, verse 36, showing us the point that Jesus understands your and my non-readiness, if that's even a word, to die. Then Jesus went with the disciples to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, sit here while I go over there and pray. He took Peter and the two sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Remember, Jesus was born to that, so he knew what was coming up. He knew that he was here to die. But yet, here's Jesus, a young man of either 33, 36, the oldest. Most of us kind of think that he was possibly might have been 36. Still a young person. Age 40 in Jesus' day was considered the age of the elder. So you're really starting to kind of be a mature adult at 40. He was 4 years to 7 years off from that. Sit here while I go there and pray. Here we go. Jesus understands what it means to not be ready to die. He took Peter and 2 sons of Zebedee, James and John, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "Is this something someone was like, oh, don't you see my Father? My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow." Jesus wasn't ready to die, to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. Can you just pray with me? Verse 39, going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground, the ultimate posture of please, begging God, fell to his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible," again, it's easy to read this passage, if it is possible. And the whole reason Jesus was born, he knew he was the solution to our sin problem, that he needed to shed his blood in a massive way and ultimately die. But this same Jesus is saying, is there another way we can save humanity and the universe? "But Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me." The same Jesus who knew what he was here for is saying, is there another way? Can you take this cup of suffering and my eventual untimely early death? Can you take this from me, not ready to die? Yet, of course, the important thing, yet not as I will, but as you will. And so there's the first time Jesus wasn't ready to die. He understands that you're not ready to die, or you must see your grandkids head off to college, or kids have kids. Then he returned, Jesus did, to his disciples and found them sleeping. "Couldn't you men keep watch with me for just an hour?" he asked Peter. "Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." Verse 42, Matthew 26:42. Jesus went away a second time and prayed, a second time, "My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done." But is there a way you can take this cup from me? Verse 43, when he came back, he again found them sleeping because their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away once more and prayed the third time. Right? Jesus understood what it's like to not be ready to die, saying the same thing. Then he returned to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour has come, and the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners." Powerful passage showing us that, hey, if you're like me, and you're like, Jesus, I tell you, every time a ping, something doesn't feel right, a cough doesn't seem right, I'm just worried, is the Lord taking me home? Of course I know the Lord, I'll be with him. I know my eternal resting place. I know God will be with me. Jesus, I'm just not ready to die. I've got a lot of living left to do. I've got kids to see, grandkids to see grow up. Jesus understands. He understands what you're going through. He shows us there in Matthew 26:36-45. He wasn't ready to die. Jesus understands our non-readiness to die. So you can tell him that. You can share that and know that he understands that. And so in conclusion, you and I must understand and believe that Jesus is our great high priest. He's one of us standing before God on our behalf. He was poor. He understands your money problems. Jesus lost loved ones. He understands your grief. Jesus was betrayed. He understands your betrayals. And Jesus didn't want to die. He understands your and my non-readiness to die. If we have an assistance with the message, let me know. There's something going on in your life, I'm going to get to the message. Let me know it's wrong.